Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are absolutely peeling back the curtain on one of the most heavily mythologized places on planet Earth. We're diving deep into the secret reality of the tech industry. We're going to explore its hidden history, its frankly bizarre corporate culture, and some of the truly existential questions it poses for all of us today. So if you think you know the story of big tech, well, prepare to have your perspective entirely shifted.
So ask yourself, where did Silicon Valley actually begin? If you listen to the popular lore, the answer seems super obvious, right? It's always that classic story of plucky, anti-establishment entrepreneurs just tinkering away in a dusty Palo Alto garage, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps to build the future out of spare parts. But actually, scratch that. As our sources reveal, the truth is vastly different and, honestly, far more fascinating.
Okay, let's dive into this. While the iconic Hewlett-Packard garage is pretty much always heralded as the birthplace of the Valley, massive defense spending and Cold War intelligence were the true financial engines powering this entire region's foundation. The entrepreneurial culture didn't just organically spring up from a bunch of consumer startups, it was heavily subsidized by the military-industrial complex.
We often think of Silicon Valley as this relatively recent phenomenon, but check out this 100-year timeline. It actually started way back in 1909 with Federal Telegraph. By the 1930s, the old agricultural fields out there were known as Vacuum Tube Valley. And then the 1950s brought us Microwave Valley, which was long before the PC boom of the 1970s. Amazingly, the true 100th anniversary of the Valley happened in 2009, and it went almost entirely ignored by the modern tech giants of today.
And just to give you a real sense of scale regarding that military influence, think about this number for a second. 7,000. In the span of just a single decade during the 1950s, a massive hiring frenzy caused the number of jobs at microwave companies to absolutely explode from a mere 700 to 7,000. And why? Because the United States military had a ravenous, almost desperate need for electronic warfare components.
Right at the center of all this explosive growth was a man who rarely ever gets the mainstream spotlight. The true hidden architect of this entire ecosystem was Fred Terman from Stanford University. Under his guidance, Stanford's engineering department basically served as the hidden nexus. It perfectly connected massive military intelligence dollars with this brand new, highly secretive microwave startup culture.
All right, Section 2, Satire Meets Startup Reality. We're going to transition from these military origins to look at the incredibly strange modern culture of the Valley, kind of using the HBO show Silicon Valley as our lens.
So over the decades, the Valley evolved from its military foundations into something almost completely unrecognizable. If you've seen that hit HBO comedy series, you definitely know the fictional megacorporation Huli. It's depicted as absurdly lavish, incredibly insular. It seems totally cartoony and exaggerated, right? But here's the wild part. When actual tech workers weigh in on community forums, they completely validate it. They say the extreme corporate insularity, the cult-like atmospheres, and the totally absurd perks are incredibly accurate to real life.
Take this concept, for example, rest and vest. This is a completely real, verified employment status in the tech world. It describes employees who literally just hang out at the office every single day with no deliverables, no expectations. They're just killing time while they wait for their lucrative stock options to mature. One tech worker even shared a story of a rest and vest colleague who spent his empty workdays cornering people just to talk about 5G mind control rays. You really, truly cannot make this stuff up.
And, well, the financial mismanagement can be equally ridiculous. Look at this verified anecdote from our sources. I've personally seen one guy furiously trying to return a margarita machine when his startup had ran out of cash. I mean, it perfectly captures the wild, totally volatile nature of the startup scene, where literally millions of dollars can vanish overnight, leaving founders desperately trying to claw back cash from party supplies. And this brilliantly illustrates just how chaotic the war for talent really is out there. It's desperate, it's fast-paced. An employee can simply change their job status on LinkedIn, right? And within minutes, their phone is ringing off the hook with recruiters, which is quickly followed by lavish gift hampers arriving at their doorstep that very same day. The amount of wealth and the sheer speed operating inside this bubble is just staggering. When you put all these accounts together, a really striking picture of modern tech titans emerges. We see bizarre CEOs going off on no-speaking retreats, executives expensing private planes just to fly their assistants out to Vegas. But most notably, there's this deeply unsettling contradiction at play. You have these intensely secretive, unmarked corporate headquarters that are guarded like literal fortresses, combined on the inside with a childish, romper room atmosphere featuring free ice cream and video games. It's like a culture of ultimate control disguised as a playground.
Which brings us to Section 3, Surveillance and the Singularity.
We are definitely shifting gears here, getting a bit darker. because this insular, data-obsessed corporate culture has birthed some pretty grave existential realities for the rest of us. To illustrate this, let me share a story from author James Wilson. He was visiting some friends in London, and one of them happened to have family in Bulgaria. On his way home, he checks his smartphone and boom, he's presented with a weather forecast for Sofia, Bulgaria. He had never been there, never searched for it, had no plans to go. He realized with an absolute chill that a data mining algorithm didn't just track his location. It somehow just knew he was visiting people with Bulgarian connections.
So the crucial point is, this isn't an accident. This is totally by design. Look at this quote from Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, and he said this over a decade ago, back in 2010. "We know where you are, we know where you've been, we can more or less know what you're thinking about." It really highlights a historically unprecedented level of surveillance. Our movements, our interests, our deepest relationships, they're being quantified every single second of the day.
And the ultimate end game for some folks in the Valley goes way, way beyond just targeted advertising. It straight up approaches science fiction. Take the whole concept of the singularity, which is heavily championed by figures like Google engineering director Ray Kurzweil. It's the predicted point, estimated around 2050, where human minds and machines will fundamentally merge. Kurzweil is actually so committed to this sci-fi vision that he has literally attempted to partially resurrect his deceased father by feeding all of his dad's surviving data into a computer model.
Which really brings us to a profound philosophical question posed by the source material. From the cold perspective of these algorithms, are we all just meat computers? Think about it. When human beings are viewed entirely as quantifiable data points, it subtly but completely strips away the whole concept of free will. We just become predictable, measurable, and ultimately manipulatable metrics sitting on a server somewhere out in California.
As our sources argue, when you build an entire global architecture that is optimized strictly for data extraction rather than human well-being, our dark impulses find a dangerous new home. They point to the completely unprecedented tracking of our daily movements, the very real threats of electoral interference, and the massive proliferation of fake news. The very concept of objective truth is being actively eroded, and primeval human instincts like vindictiveness have been fully weaponized through digital cancel culture, allowing people's lives to be destroyed from the total safety of an anonymous keyboard.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought to ponder today. If the algorithms already know exactly what you are doing next, are we actually still in control? Or are we really just data waiting to be mined? As you navigate your own digital life today, I really encourage you to look just a little bit closer at the hidden webs catching us, and maybe question your own relationship with the technology being built in the Valley. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will absolutely see you next time.